Okay, 10.3 is we're just going to be doing intro to probability. So like rolling dice, playing cards, drawing marbles, that type of thing. So theoretical probability is like what you would expect to happen. So you're not actually conducting the experiment, you're not actually doing it, but you would expect something to happen. So when you flip a coin, what percentage would you expect to land on tails? How many percent of the time? 50% of the time. But if you actually flipped the coin 10 times, would you actually get 5 out of 10? You could not as well. So theoretical probability is what you would expect to happen. So that's your expectation. You're not actually conducting the trial or anything like that. You're just expecting to get 5 out of 10. That's what theoretically should happen. And so the formula for that is the number of outcomes over the total outcomes. So if you look at number 1, you roll a standard 6-sided dice. Find the probability of rolling a 5. So what would you expect to roll a 5? 1 out of 6. Because a 5 only occurs 1 time out of 6. For part B, rolling an even number. How many even numbers do I have on a dice? 2, 4, and 6. So I would expect 3 out of 6, which would reduce to 1/2. Number 2, you have an equally likely chance of choosing an integer from 1 to 20, 1 and 20 included. What is the probability that a perfect square is chosen? So let's write out perfect square. And then what that means is like when you take the square root, you get a whole number. So what would those be? We're forgetting 1. 1, 4, 9, 16. Good. And then no more between that and 20. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 out of 20. And that would reduce to 1 out of 5. Part B, what is the probability that a factor of 30 is chosen? So probably the hardest part of this unit is knowing what factors of 30 are and what perfect squares are. So let's name all of the factors of 30. We have 1 and 30. You have 2 and 15, 3 and 10, and 5 and 6. But it's only between 1 and 20, so which one goes away? The 30. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So for part B, it would be 7 out of 20. Does that reduce? No, so then I just leave it. Okay, here are some card facts if you want to write them down. Might be expected to know these. So you have 52 cards total. Then you split them into the colors, black and red, 26 of each of those. Then you can split them into suits. So there are 4 suits total. There would be 13 of each. Club, heart, diamond, and spade. And then there are 4 of each type. So if I said what's the probability of drawing a 4, then you would have 4 out of 52. So 1 for each suit. And then if we were talking about face cards, we would be talking about king, queen, and jack. Ace is not considered a face card because it doesn't have a face. So for part A, what is the probability that you will draw a 10? You get 4 out of 52, which reduces to 1 over 13. For part B, what is the probability that you will draw a face card? You have 3 face cards, 4 of each, so it would be 12 out of 52, which reduces to 3 out of 13. And then for part C, what is the probability that you will not draw a club? So it would be 3 out of 4 because 1/4 of them are clubs, and so 3/4 of them are not clubs. All right, so this is experimental probability. This is like what actually happens. So if I were to flip a coin 100 times and I landed on tails 43 times, then the experimental probability would be 43 out of 100, whereas the theoretical probability would be 50 out of 100. So it's what actually occurs versus what ideally should occur. So for number 4, it says we have a bar graph, and it shows how old adults in a survey would choose to be if they could choose any age. It's a weird survey. Anyway, find the experimental probability that a randomly selected adult would prefer to be at least 40 years old. So what does at least mean? Is it greater than or equal to or less than or equal to? Greater than or equal to 40. Not as many people choose to be greater than or equal to 40. So I would include this section right here from 40 to 69. I guess no one chose to be 70. That's sad. I would choose to be 70. Yeah, I'd be retired. You live in a retired home, play bingo. This is all on the video. No, whenever we're old, we're going to all live to be like 100 and something. Convinced. Okay, anyway, so I'm going to take all of the totals. Which is 551 plus 300 plus 238. And then I'm going to put that over the total number of trials, so the grand total. So I'm going to add up every single person because they were mean and didn't tell me how many people were surveyed. So I'm going to add up 463 plus 1085. It's 1080. It's 1085, right? Yeah. Oh, you just already answered it. Oops, plus 238. And you end up getting 1089 over 3516. And then I want to reduce that fraction. So what would the fraction answer be? 363 out of 1172, or 0.3097. I would accept either answer.
We can put it in our calculator.
Yeah, the calculator simplifies. If you have an 84, if you hit math, enter, it'll go to a fraction. But all you have to know is the formula of a circle. So anyway, you throw a dart at a square board shown. Your dart is equally likely to hit at any point inside the board. Are you more likely to get 10 points or 0 points? So what I need to do, your probability is like the proportion of your area, okay? So what I need to do first is I want to find the total area of the square. So I'm going to take that square, I'm going to find the total area of that. So area of the square would be length times width, and that would be what? 18 squared, or 18 times 18, which gives me 3. That should be a 3.
How do you know it's a square?
Because it just gives you the length of one side.
But you can find it out.
And it says a square board.
No, you can't.
Square. In the problem, it says square.
Inside the board, like within the 2, 5, 10?
Right, so if I'm throwing a dart, am I more likely to get on the outside where that, if you see on the board the black area is, or am I more likely to get a 10 where the yellow part is? So I need to find the area of each in relation to the big square and find if the proportion of area for the circle is bigger than the proportion of the black outside area.
5 and 2 are not being considered.
No. So total area is 324. This is going to be like my denominator for when I'm finding the proportions. I want to find the area of the 10-point circle. So how can I figure that out? Pi r squared. So pi r squared, each one of these little guys is 3, 3, 3. So the little circle in the middle, if I'm doing pi r squared, would be pi 3 squared, which is 9 pi. Put the pi in your calculator, and I want you to get a decimal. But don't use 3.14. You get what? Go out 3 decimal places. 28.274. And what is the last thing that I need to find? Because I'm comparing the area of the 10-point circle to the area of 0 points. How could I get the area for 0 points, like the stuff on the outside?
Subtract.
9 squared.
Subtracting
Subtract.
the area of the box by the area of the
big
circle.
Yeah, so I want to find the area of the big circle, and then if I subtract it from the square, then that leaves me with all this stuff on the outside. So let's find, so area of 0 points. I'm going to take the total, which is 324, and I'm going to subtract this big circle, and then that leaves me with all this outside area. And so to find the big circle, it is pi, the radius would be what? 9 squared. So 324 minus 81 pi gives me 69.53. 531. So now I've got my 3 areas. If I want to find the probability of 10 points, how would I figure that out? The probability of 10 points. So
Area of the little
probability of 10 points is 10 points over the total area. So I would have 28.274 over 324, which gives me what? Something. You can, but I want to show you how to get each probability in case it just asks you for one probability. 0.087. So you have about like an 8% chance of getting 10 points. That's why you shouldn't play darts.
I always don't.
Unless you're precise. That's assuming that it just could go anywhere.
And
Precise, there's
0 points, I'm going to do the same thing, 69.531 over 324. And you should get 0.215. So whoever made this dartboard is evil. There's a 20% chance that you get 21.5% chance that you get no points.
What if you have skill